Jim Jordan has served on select committee and serves on one now. Made it undeniable this panel has lost all legitimacy and credibility. And it shows exactly what I warned back at the beginning of January, that Pelosi would play politics with this. For more than 6 months, you have a better example of the Senate, bipartisan. Schumer didn't pick who went on as the Republicans. They already have the report done by 2 different committees. 2 main questions. Why was the Capitol so ill-prepared for that day when they knew on December 14th they had a problem? And what have we done to make sure that never happens again? Pelosi has created a sham process. Unless Speaker Pelosi reverses course and seats all 5 Republicans, we will not participate. But we think it's too important that those 2 questions, why were we ill-prepared? Why did they know on December 14th? Why would they jeopardize the lives of the Capitol Police? We will run our own investigation. We have law enforcement, we have military, we have doctors, we have people from all walks of life. They want to know the answer. The American people deserve that. They don't deserve politics. They don't deserve destroying the institution. No committee in Congress will work if one person is picking all who can serve. This has not happened before. House Democrats must answer this question. Why are you allowing a lame duck speaker to destroy this institution? This is the people's house, not Pelosi's house. We will do our job, though. We asked to do our job. We want to do our job. I may object to the people that she put on the committee, but I respect her right to do it, just as every leader has done before. Destroy an institution for your own political gain. America expects more and deserves more. With that, I want to bring up Congressman Jim Banks, individual who served his country in Afghanistan, served in a state legislature, serves in Congress, and is chair of the largest caucus in the Republican Conference. Jim Banks.
Thank you. I thank the leader first and foremost for his trust that he placed in me as a leader of our party to put me in charge of this Republican effort. This just goes to show how partisan of an exercise we said this was all along. That Nancy Pelosi would take me and Jim Jordan first off of this committee and the rest of us as well by rejecting the first 2 of us. She knows that we were prepared to fight to get to the truth, to find the facts about what happened on that day to make sure that January 6th would never happen again. But she doesn't want to go down that path. She knows that we're already asking questions in just the first couple of days that Leader McCarthy appointed us to this task, questions that Democrats have never asked about why the Capitol was vulnerable on that day when we had intelligence for weeks leading up to January 6th that told us that something dangerous would happen on January 6th. She knew we would fight back against their political games, and that's why she didn't want us to participate in this committee. It just goes to show this is entirely a political exercise on her part. It's a shame. The American people deserve better. They demand answers about January 6th because the American people demand that their leaders step up to make sure that it never happens again. But we all know that this is an exercise in politics. It's not an exercise in finding the facts, and that's what's unfortunate about the Speaker's move. It just goes to show, it begs the question that all of us should be asking, what is the Speaker afraid of? I'll leave you with that. Jim Jordan.
Thank you, Jim. The leader and Jim are exactly right. This has always been about politics, and today's actions of the Speaker just confirm that. But frankly, and I've said this before, what else are they going to talk about? I mean, they're so focused on the January 6th committee. What else are they going to talk? Are they going to talk about crime? The fact that crime is up in every major urban area in this country? They're going to talk about the border crisis? I mean, think about this. March was the highest month on record for illegal crossings until April. April was the highest month on record until May. May was the highest month on record until June. Can't talk about that. They're going to talk about inflation. They're going to talk about the fact that the price of eggs is up, the price of milk is up, the price of bread is up, the price of gas is up, the price of an airline ticket's up, the price of the price of everything is up. They can't talk about that. So they're going to be partisan, and they're going to focus on this. But as the leader said, and as Mr. Banks said, I don't think they're going to address the fundamental question. The fundamental question of why wasn't there a proper security presence at the Capitol that day? They're not going to address that. And only one person can answer that question. Only one. Speaker of the United States House of Representatives. My hunch is the reason they don't want to address that question, my hunch is because what happened all last year? The Democrats normalized anarchy. They normalized rioting and looting. And when rioters and looters attacked our law enforcement personnel, when rioters and looters destroyed small businesses, what did Democrats do? They went out and raised money to bail them out of jail, and they continue to talk about defunding the police, and in fact did that in all these major urban areas, which is why crime is up. So they don't want to talk about that stuff. They just want to be partisan. They just want to continue to attack the former president. They want to play their political game. So I applaud Leader McCarthy for saying we're going to do our job. We're going to continue to work and get to the bottom and answer the questions that the leader raised, the questions that, frankly, the American people want answers to. With that, I recognize you.
On the evening of January 6th, when we reconvened to take the certification of the election results from our states, I actually spoke with Speaker Pelosi on the dais, and she brought up a bipartisan, bicameral commission to me at that point in time. I introduced a bill to create a bipartisan, bicameral commission. We had some questions about how this would be implemented, and Speaker Pelosi decided instead to put forth her own select committee that we now know is a completely partisan process. It's very disappointing because I think all of us were looking forward to our first hearing next week to be able to get answers to some of the questions that were raised by Leader McCarthy, by Ranking Member Banks, and by Jim Jordan. But we're not going to get those answers in even a partisan manner on this committee because she chose to take the unprecedented step to try and veto our own members. We are going to continue to ask questions. And frankly, there are many unanswered questions about why this Capitol was so unprepared. And the key question, as Leader McCarthy said, is, are we in a better position now, security-wise? There are many issues that we saw in Capitol Police, IG reports, and others that laid out reasons why our officers didn't have the equipment, they didn't have the training, and they didn't have the preparation and the backup to adequately address what happened on January 6th. Why? And what have we done? What has the Speaker done? And more importantly, what has she asked the Capitol Police Board that is made up of her own appointee? What have they done to put this Capitol complex in a situation to address another security issue? Those questions would have been asked, and those questions will still be asked, regardless of whether or not she continues to play politics. And I'll end with this by saying, I've seen and witnessed political violence personally out on a baseball field in Virginia just a few short years ago. I've seen what well-trained Capitol Police officers like David Bailey and Crystal Griner were able to do to run toward gunfire as we ran away from it. And it's disappointing to see that our Capitol Police officers, who I witnessed that bravery that day, are still not put in a position to be able to make sure that another type of January 6th would not happen again. She needs to answer questions. We were hoping to get those answers, but unfortunately, we're not going to. I'd like to introduce Kelly Armstrong.
Thanks, Rodney. I agree with everything that's been said. I've served for 2 years with Jim Jordan on oversight and judiciary. We've been through a lot of tough hearings together, a lot of hearings that were going to be similar to this, and we know how to do this. We have credibility with the American people, and to strike Jim Banks and Jim Jordan from this committee is just unacceptable. And I think it's important to recognize that every time Speaker Pelosi uses the word unprecedented, it happens to consolidate absolute power in the Speaker's office. It was unprecedented to build a glass cage in order to make sure she got the gavel. It was unprecedented to put metal detectors on the floor of the House. It's unprecedented to have proxy voting, and it's sure unprecedented for the majority leader to strike minority members for a committee. I don't think this committee is about the last election. I don't even think it's about the next election. It's about the Speaker's office maintaining an absolute iron grip on her conference and the People's House for the next 18 months. And I'm concerned that after 200 years of precedent, we are completely altering how things are done in the People's House. But you know what else? I'd be concerned if I was a majority member right now, because the math, and their policies are going to help us take back the majority in 2 years. And these things never go back to the way they were once they started. So we need to be calling out what's going on. Every member of the U.S. House of Representatives is elected by their district, and they have a right to serve. And the minority has a right to put the people on the committees they want. And we shouldn't be changing those for this committee or any other committee. And with that, I turn it over to Sheriff Nels.
Thank you.
When I was chosen by Leader McCarthy to serve on this select committee, I assured him, I told him, I said, I will take the 30 years of law enforcement experience I have, the 8 years as sheriff, to uncover, find out exactly what took place on January 6th, to find the truth as to why this Capitol was so unprepared. I spent countless hours. I brought this binder up. I've examined the Senate report, looking at witness statements, looking at the Capitol Hill's policies and procedures. And I was alarmed, truly alarmed, at what I uncovered. I was certainly prepared to help this committee get to the truth. I wanted to get to the truth. But unfortunately, Speaker Pelosi has shown that she's more interested in playing politics. I stand with Leader McCarthy and the other colleagues on this committee. I assured the leader that I will continue to play a role and do everything I can to make sure that what took place on January 6th can never, ever happen again in this great country of ours. I made that commitment. I will remain strong in that commitment to the leader. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Leader, you're complaining that you don't have a bipartisan opportunity here to investigate January 6th, but you stood in the way of a bipartisan commission that would be made up of independent members, an equal number of Republicans and Democrats. Your conference voted against that, at least a majority of your conference voted against it, and it was blocked in the Senate. Why did you not allow that to go forward if what you say you want is a bipartisan investigation into what happened on January 6th?
For the same politics Pelosi played then. At the same time, when she used the scope of that. Remember how long it took. On January 13th, Rodney Davis and myself both requested a 9/11 commission. Even those who ran the 9/11 commission criticized Nancy Pelosi for what she wanted to do. We had Officer Evans killed on Good Friday, but she said you couldn't look at that. If you study the 9/11 commission, they didn't study what happened on just September 11th. They studied what built up to it. But she said, no, you could not do that. Why would she make a scope that you couldn't get the answers to? Why would an officer's life not matter to her? That's why people objected. People asked for it before. She played 6 months with this. Why she played her games and continued to do so? The Senate acted. 2 committees. The report is done. The FBI has arrested more than 500 people. The architect of the Capitol has $10 million. And what does she do today? Continue the same sham she's done all along. Never in the history of this institution for a select committee, and she admitted to me when she called me, have they ever done something like this. Think for one moment. Jim Banks is a naval officer, defended his nation, served in Afghanistan, elected by his peers of the largest conference in the committee, but she wants to say, predetermined, that he can't serve, that Pelosi can pick and choose. Jim Jordan. Is she afraid of a question from Jim? Is she afraid what he might ask or fight for? He's a ranking member. Not his first committee, but his second. Why would she be afraid? Did she set the committee itself to be one-sided? Yes. More so than any select committee before? Yes, she did. We warned you from that moment in time she was playing politics. Today just showed the American people exactly what everybody was warned. It's the American people who lose in this, but we're not going to allow that to happen. We're going to get to the answer of the question. Why were we ill prepared? Why, if they knew on December 14th? Why, if they found IEDs earlier in the morning? Why were not the National Guard here at the Capitol, but they were running street signs down in the city? Who made that judgment? Yes, sir.
You said in your statement that Republicans will, quote, instead pursue our own investigation of the facts.
Yes.
What does that look like, first off? And secondly, is this your final move, pulling your appointees, or is there a chance to reverse this?
The only way to reverse this is seat these 5. That's the only way. But I will add to this to be able to look at the challenge of what happened and answer those 2 questions. Why were we ill prepared? And make sure it never happens again.
But in terms of an
Yes,
actual
sir.
body, what is that investigation?
In addition to those questions, do you intend to look at why this happened, not the security failures, but why there was an attack on the Capitol, what led up to it?
We'll answer all the questions, yes.
Mr. Leader, I want to know more specifically, what do you say to these families and to these officers, including officers that you met with,
Yes.
about this? And more specifically, you know, many of them, they're just frustrated. They see this as politics, but at the end of the day, you
It's true, it is
Speaker, are
politics by
pointing
Pelosi.
fingers at each other. So how does that help them if you guys
What
are
helps them is we will go forward just as I promised them, and we'll get the answer to those questions.
Mr. Leader,
We'll make sure they're protected, just as we'll talk about Officer Evans, too, who died on Good Friday.
But how?
We'll go through and get the answers. Yes, sir.
Mr. Leader, on May 20th in this room, I think you told us that you were prepared to testify about your conversation with President Trump on the afternoon of January 6th. Do you still stand by that? Are you still prepared to testify about your conversation?
My phone call is out there. The question is, you make a phone call after people are in the Capitol to advise the president of what's going on, doesn't get to the answer of why were we ill prepared. That's really playing politics, and it really shows if that's the issue that they want to go to, of where they want to drive, we want to get all the answers. Yes.
Your own ranking member, John Katko, said the scope of the bipartisan independent January 6th commission that he crafted had the ability to, you know, have a wider scope outside of January 6th.
Unfortunately, the Democrats and Pelosi said no to that.
And you and Republican leaders still opposed it. The question is, you know, what would you need to have it? And like, you know, you oppose the independent commission. Like, what would it take for you to sign on to something, you know, similar to that?
It's very easy. Exactly what we said on the 13th of January. Why Pelosi played politics, make it just like the 9/11. Let us discover what built up to it. Why was that decision made that National Guard were not here when on December 14th? Can I answer the question? Okay, let me answer the question. So on December 14th, they became aware that there was a problem. They made a decision to have National Guard without weapons down on the streets to do traffic, but not in the Capitol. They found IEDs earlier in the morning. We had an officer killed beyond that day on Good Friday. But Pelosi would only let us with a scope this far. I don't believe it allowed to go further, and I think we need to. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Leader, Speaker Pelosi didn't actually enumerate her objections when she in her official notice about rejecting her members. But
she did.
That's what I was going to say. What did she tell? Democrats have told us that among their objections, and I'd like you to respond to this, are that Republican members recently were photographed with someone who was here and broke into the Capitol on January 6th, and also they
No, she never said nothing about that.
Well, okay, well, this is something that we're being told is an issue.
She said her members didn't want her to put these people on.
Okay, could you speak to that idea, though, that members,
I don't know what you're talking
participated
about.
in? Okay,
I don't know what you're talking about.
The idea that some of your words about needing an investigation of last summer's protests and riots,
No.
as you say, are
let me be clear.
Democrats object to that.
Let me be clear. They shouldn't object to that. If they want a 9/11 commission, the 9/11 commission looked at September 11th, but they looked at what built up and caused 9/11. Should we not look at what built up and caused this? Should we not question why the National Guard was not allowed onto the Capitol? Should we not question why are the Capitol Police not fully trained? You're putting their lives in danger. Why were the riot gear stuck and locked in a bus down the street? We need these answers for these officers. We need to not ever put them in this place again. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Will the Republican committee look at President Trump's actions leading up to and on January 6th?
We'll look at anything that built up of what caused this place to not be protected, and we'll look to make sure that it never happens again. Yes, sir. Yeah, you.
Sorry, this is my first presser. You mentioned Mr. Banks and Mr. Jordan not being allowed on, but at the same time, given that Mr. Jordan is a ranking member and Mr. Banks also is a leader of a large caucus, Mr. Davis is also, or Representative Davis, I'm sorry, Representative Davis is also a ranking member, and Speaker Pelosi didn't object to it, and then Representative Nels also voted to object, along with Mr. Representative Banks and Representative Jordan. Why do you think there was a difference between her objecting to Representative Banks and Representative Jordan as opposed to Representative Davis?
I don't know, because she named a chairman who objected to presidential, and she has Raskin who objected and asked for an impeachment too. So I don't know if the objection matters because her members have objected before. Yes, sir.
Leader McCarthy, the locked bus with the gear on it, that's a finding from the Senate report.
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly what they investigated. What do you want to find out? Who locked the bus?
Why was it there? Why didn't they have the gear on? Why did they have it better positioned?
Isn't the answer that they were just incompetent? I mean, what more do you need to know about?
Well, that's incompetent. Then what's the solution? We want to find solutions. This is why, when you look at Sheriff Troy Nels, 30 years of law enforcement. First, what did he do that day? He'd been a member for 3 days. He's inside the chambers. People are breaking in. First, he joins other members and they barricade the door. People are breaking the glass. Officers have their weapons drawn to protect from people coming in. A member for only 3 days. We didn't call him congressman that day, we called him sheriff. You may have watched the photos. He looks through the glass. He doesn't have a weapon, but he calms the situation. He talks to those who are on the other side. That's a leader. He sat through the entire Senate report. He's laid out every chronological order of what has taken place. He used his own experience of being a sheriff from 8 years, preparing for situations just as what he was drawn into. And he has even more questions. That's why he wanted to serve. That's why we put him on. This is a microcosm of our conference. We have a right to name. But this is what Nancy Pelosi is denying. Yes, ma'am.
When you initially laid out your reasoning coming out against the bipartisan commission, you had kind of raised concerns about any additional investigations here, interfering with other federal investigations that are ongoing.
Well, there's a concern there because now you're getting individuals that are decisions being made whether they're serving time or not. You do not want to interfere with that. So the language mattered. But from the very beginning, remember, I asked for a commission back in January, just like 9/11. Pelosi played games all along the way. She'd deal with the scope, and it was very clear of what we laid out. Equal number, equal subpoena power, equal scope, and don't interfere with any law enforcement going forward. She could not agree to that, and we watched today, even when the sides were separated, even when the power went to one, she went further than anyone's gone before. I think it's very clear to the American public. This is a sham, but we will make sure we get to the real answers. Thank you very much.
Leader McCarthy, should Congresswoman Cheney step down from the committee?
All right, that was House Speaker, that was House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy explaining that unless House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who just rejected 2 of his 5 picks for the Select Committee investigating the January 6th assault on the Capitol, unless Speaker Pelosi rescinds that decision to reject 2 of his 5 picks and goes ahead and approves all 5 picks, that the Republican Party will pull all 5 of their picks to be on that committee and will launch an investigation of their own. I want to go to our political director, Rick Klein, for a little bit more on this. Rick, we heard House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy there making it a point of something that Speaker Pelosi herself admitted in her statement, that this is unprecedented action that she's taking, rejecting these Republican members from what's supposed to be a bipartisan committee. But she says unprecedented times call for unprecedented measures, essentially. What do you make of this?
This is a major surprise, and you can see how angry Kevin McCarthy is in his reaction here. I think it's important to remember the context here, that it was Republicans who rejected the bipartisan 9/11-style commission. McCarthy voted against it. Senate Republicans wound up blocking it. And then McCarthy now, very, very late in the game, adding his members, including several members who've said, quite over-the-top things about January 6th. A big effort by members of his conference to redefine what January 6th meant. You hear the questions that they're looking to answer. It's a lot different than what the Democrats would look to answer. But this is a major escalation in the sniping between the two leaders. There are a lot of Republicans who are just plain angry about this moment, Kevin McCarthy among them. And ultimately, he is saying that he is going to have a separate committee that's going to look into different elements that he says Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats don't want to. And this collapse of any kind of bipartisanship is emblematic of some broader issues in Congress, and is not a good sign for a healthy and functioning democracy.
Rick, you would think that exploring what happened on January 6th, exploring things like what caused the riot and why the Capitol was so vulnerable, that these are questions, at the very least, these are questions that our leaders could agree on and want answers to. So how does something like this now come down to pure politics, it sounds like?
Well, two words, Donald Trump. I mean, it was the fact that he, of course, incited so much of the violence that day and has sought to redefine what it meant, talking about people that stormed the Capitol as patriots. There's been an effort in some conservative and pro-Trump circles to rewrite the history, say it was basically a bunch of tourists there. There's been people suggesting that the woman who was killed by Capitol Police trying to enter the chamber was assassinated, was killed by the Capitol Police, even though she was unarmed. The suggestion that the Capitol Police officer was somehow at fault for that. And you see in the questions that McCarthy just outlined, the two big ones, why was the Capitol not better prepared? Well, Nancy Pelosi is in charge, at least nominally, of security at the Capitol as the Speaker of the House. So you can see where that leads. And what have we done since then? Again, Pelosi, as well as President Biden, who became president just 2 weeks after January 6th. We heard from Republicans even just in the last 24 hours that they intended to look at Pelosi and look at Biden. And to Democrats like Nancy Pelosi, that's exactly where they didn't want this committee to go. They wanted to make sure this was squarely about January 6th and about the people that arrived there at the Capitol. They didn't want other distractions. And from the start, McCarthy and many House Republicans have said they wanted this to be broader. They wanted to look back at the violent protests last summer. They wanted to look at the culpability, potentially, of elected leaders in Washington on the Democratic side. That was viewed by Democrats as a distraction strategy, and that's explicitly what Pelosi's rejecting.
But, Rick, Pelosi didn't go ahead and specify why she was rejecting Jordan and Banks. So doesn't that make it more difficult for her to defend herself against accusations that this is all political? And why not maybe increase the scope a little bit to include the general look at a lack of security at the Capitol, both with what happened on January 6th, and meet this Republican request to also look into what happened on Good Friday when a man rammed his car into two officers, killing one before crashing into a barrier at the Capitol?
Valid questions, all of them. And in fact, one of the members that Pelosi was apparently fine with accepting was among those who voted against accepting certification of the Electoral College results, as did Kevin McCarthy and his top deputy at the time, Steve Scalise. I think it's impossible to overstate the internal politics that Pelosi's playing here. The level of trust between Democrats and Republicans who voted to reject the Electoral College results and or continue their loyalty to President Trump and to continue the efforts to rewrite the history. There's a level of anger and mistrust that, to my mind, is unprecedented in recent decades. And that, I think, is a lot of what's behind this decision by Pelosi. People that I talked to in the immediate aftermath, though, are just shocked. They looked at what McCarthy did. They looked at the names that he put forward and said, OK, we understand they've got some fierce partisans in Banks and Jordan, but there are other members who are more toward the moderate side that might do a real job on this. Someone like Kelly Armstrong, a lawyer who's got a high regard from all facets facets of the party. McCarthy didn't choose people like Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, of course, a QAnon adherent who has said that she wanted to be on the committee. So he could have chosen other members that were even more incendiary. I think McCarthy's view of this was that he was making a good faith effort to balance different constituencies. He never anticipated that Pelosi would reject those picks, and not a lot of people saw this coming.
All right, Rick Klein, we appreciate the analysis as always.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.